We'll share screen. Please let me know if you can see the screen that's popped up. Anyone can share that to me? Stacey, fantastic. So thank you for having me this morning for this fresh networking webinar on the importance of pricing in your business. And I guess this will go for 30 minutes. If you have any questions, please feel free to either drop them in the chat box as well and look to allocate time at the end. So today really is around the concept of pricing, as Darren mentioned. We all price our products and services. So today you'll learn about a fair few topics. What is pricing? Why is it important? We'll talk about how it impacts on your bottom line. That might sound obvious, but we'll talk through that in an example. The Goldilocks theory, and there's two. There's the actual story, and then there's my version of. We'll talk about the quality price matrix. We'll think about, what are your pricing objectives in your business? Some pricing strategies. What is the framework around pricing in terms of the ACCC and in terms of outcomes? So after half an hour today, if I've been successful, you understand the importance of having a method to set your pricing and what are some of the ways you can do that. So really, we'll make a start. And I guess you'll hear concepts today that some of them we won't work in detail. We'll just touch on. So I guess hopefully today is getting you thinking around what do you know and what do you need to know more. So what is pricing? Pricing is what you decide to charge for what you're selling. Very simple. And it sounds easy, but there's much more to it than that. And any business that wants to get this right really needs to have a plan. And my view is, planning is inherently built into successful businesses. And in terms of pricing, the sweet spot is more than just finding out what your customers are prepared to pay for at any given time. Good pricing strategies are sustainable and flexible. And I guess to the next segue is, well, why is it important? Because it's a major factor in a customer's buying decision. Think about when you last went online to buy something. How important was pricing in your decision when you search for a price range? And pricing is important in the people who buy from us and what we buy. And more importantly too, it's how you translate the value of what you're selling. And we'll touch on the word value a few times this morning, because ultimately you're selling a product or service and there's a value on that. And there's different values in different things that you do. And ultimately pricing strategies help you tap into your target market. And the risk too, and we'll talk about this, is that a low price can sound fantastic, but it can put you out of business. And a price that's too high can actually price you out. This is a simple example of 3 companies and how does pricing impact on your bottom line? And I'll just take a couple of minutes just to go through this, a basic example here. The 3 companies are selling the same product and they're selling 100 of each, but their prices are different. Company A has the price of 80 cents per product, company B 90 cents, and company C $1. Now, if you look at this and this is a summarized profit and loss here, that company A has the lowest price, but their net profit is 0. So they have a gross profit and expenses in 0. So for them in that pricing equation, yes, it's covered their overheads, but they've only just broken even. There's no cash generated to anything else. So you could say, how effective is that pricing policy? Probably not very. Then you go to company C, they've sold at $1. They've sold the same volume. They've got a higher gross profit and a higher net profit. So they've got money to spend to reinvest back into the business. So they've got $20 of profit. And then in the middle, there's company B, who's a mid-priced. And you see they've made a smaller profit, but at least they've made a profit. So what this is saying is that a simple equation to say where you price your products and services impacts on your revenue, it impacts on your gross profit and your gross profit margin. And I guess the question would be, just throwing out there, do you know in your businesses what your gross profit margin should be? It's something I talk to clients about, because ultimately when you're pricing, and do you know what your target net profit is? So in this business, company C may have said specifically they want to achieve a 50% gross profit margin and a 20% net profit margin. So this is showing, well, if you get your pricing wrong, you can not perform financially and have a net profit or a loss. If the price was 70 cents, it would be a loss there. We'll get now to the Goldilocks story, and I guess most of us know that, but literally this dates back to the early 1800s, where a young girl visited a cottage where there were 3 bears. The bears had left their porridge in the cottage, so she tried each of them. And you'll see the picture there. The first one was too hot, the second one was too cold, and the third was just right. I guess what I've done is, for this benefit today, is interpreted that story. The Goldilocks theory is that if you are the 3 bears and your bowls are products you're selling, if the first bowl is too hot, is that going to present a high price? And maybe you don't sell anything, so the price is too high. The second bowl could represent a low price, where you get great demand, but like that on the page previously, you didn't make any money out of it. So pricing too low can sound great, but if you don't make enough margin, then you won't deliver the profit your business needs. And the third bowl was in the middle, just right. I guess my summary there to you all is that testing the market with various price points is trying to get to accept a market price acceptance, not selling on value. Because my question to you think about is, what if the first bowl was the best value product and it just didn't present well? So when you're going to market, when you're selling your services and products, how do you sell value? I was talking to a client yesterday saying, what does your brand represent? Are you a premium service, mid-tier? So understanding purely just having price in the equation, in there, because price will be driven down. And if you try and meet a market price level may not return the net profits that you need for your business. One of the things I want to talk about today is really I'm not sure, have you seen this? It's called the quality and price matrix. And what it's saying is that there's a 9-box matrix here of the price of your service or product and the quality of. And what this is designed to say is that, look at of the products that we sell, where do they sit? And you can look on the bottom left-hand side, there is low price and low quality. So you might, for example, you might go into a supermarket and you get a box of tissue, for example. They're a low price, low quality. You use one, throw it out. So these things that we buy and consume that are that end. Or conversely, at the top end, at high price and high quality, there are things that you buy that, a very expensive car or jewelry that you would buy and keep for a while. And what this is saying is that when consumers look at your products and services, they're assessing, well, what am I getting? Am I getting, in terms of the service, is it high quality? And where is the price pitched? So if you're trying to say, okay, I'm trying to get this price, what quality do your clients get from you? Where is your positioning? Now, in this situation it actually asks people to think, do you have your pricing set correctly for where your quality is pitched? And some clients I work with, they have products in different boxes. They'll have something that's low quality, low price, and some at the high end, because that's their plan. They want to have a range of different products or services. But in doing so, it's understanding that where do you sit in this matrix, and saying, well, you might say, okay, I sit in the medium price, medium quality, but I want to be high price, high quality. The question becomes, how do you shift that? How do you shift your product or service into that higher quality quadrant to get the higher price? And in doing so, you're not necessarily meeting the market. What you're actually doing is saying, then when people buy from you, they pay that price because of the value of what they get from you. So I think the thing about it then is that, where is your pricing pitched? What is the quality of what they get? and compared to some of your competitors, and it's knowing that you're there for a reason, and also too, the marketing and the branding that you do, how is that congruent with that? Because if you're marketing to say, hey, hot deal, great deal, come and buy me now, how is that congruent with the high quality, high price? So thinking about when you advertise and market your business, how is that consistent with where are you pricing your products and services? So what are your pricing objectives? So think about, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to achieve a position in the market? Are you looking at your competitors and saying, hey, they're here, we need to be there? And what's the ability to supply or increase demand? The thing about trying to look at you position your price is, it's important to establish your products and services in the market. So if you're trying to sell high-end products, you're not competing on price. I guess conversely, if you're trying to get lots of volume of something out there, then you need to be price competitive. And also, as I mentioned previously, price that can indicate a level of quality. So we'll talk about this in a few slides, so that if you're pricing at the higher end and have a quality to boot, that's great. But understanding that people will perceive embedded quality based on different price points, even if you don't tell them, they will perceive a higher price to high quality. And then for you, it's around, while your pricing objectives, well, how are you going to remain competitive? Because we stay in business by getting a flow of work and people choosing to engage us and buy our products for the prices we charge. So the question becomes, are you a price leader? So are you want to be someone who's out there saying, hey, I'm going to be the bee's knees, I'm going to set a higher price because my services are fantastic. And then what will your competitors do? So at the same time, in doing that, a level of market research is imperative to understand that. But at the same time is that there's balancing out, what do you need to achieve within the market you live in, but also what does it need to achieve for your bottom line? Because you might find if there's businesses out there with bigger overheads than yours, they need to price higher to cover the overheads. So ultimately, each business model is unique. Each of yours is unique, but understand what are you trying to achieve there. Other factor to consider is in your pricing objectives, increasing demand. So if you're trying to drive sales of your services or product, maybe you look and say, okay, for a period of time, you're going to discount that because you need to drive demand to get people to consume what you do. So they can, through word of mouth, promote that to get your volume of your business moving along. Because ultimately, simply put, you can have a fantastic price, but if no one buys it, then there's no sales and there's no profit. So at some point in time, and I was talking with a client yesterday, they're a trade business. And ultimately I said to them, well, you need to keep your guys working. So there's certain points where you will consciously decide to reduce your price because it makes practical sense to do so. But then conversely, if you're busy and you're at full capacity, well, then you don't need to. So at points in your business cycle, you can choose when you change your prices. Another point to note as well, to think about when you're pricing, what are your objectives, and making sure they are complementary to each other. Because if you're doing that, if you had, for example, two services, one was premium and one was low, the question would be from a client would be, from a customer, why is that the case? So if you have a range of services and you overlay them back on that quality price matrix, you might say, does that make sense? Am I trying to be everything to everyone, or would I want to play in that space? So this is a diagram in a different way of price positioning. And the question is, you'd consider which motor vehicle are you? So this has done one research in the motor vehicle industry. And you can see Ferrari and Mercedes on the right-hand side. And this is a matrix of price and quality. So in doing so, you can see different vehicles in different brands and different quadrants. Now, clearly, in doing so, these companies that are still trading today, they've made conscious decisions to be in different quadrants. So you look at it like a Ferrari and a Mercedes, they may not sell as many of the vehicles as a Kia or a VW, but their prices are higher. Then you've got Ford and Toyota that sit around the middle range, and then the Infiniti and the Mini on the left-hand side. So getting you thinking today, saying, well, if your business is a motor vehicle, which one are you? And second to that, what do you want it to be? Because in doing so, you can shift that and understand that if you're trying to position your business to be higher quality and higher price, how do you get there? And what are the character traits that make that? And in doing so, understanding too that you will be different than your competitor. And I have this situation from first-hand experience where I have clients come to me and they say, can you move on price? And I'll say no. And that's not being disrespectful to them. It's just saying that for the value of what I do for that service, I don't reduce the price. If you're looking for someone cheaper, I can give you their name. So definitely it's helping them out, but understanding that where does your business sit on there? And at some stage saying, well, why is your business in a quadrant? What makes it so? And in your planning, if you look ahead, how do you move that to shift that to get a higher price? Because ultimately, if your customers want to pay more for your services, then how do you shift that? And your bottom line will benefit from that. So the further you can position your value and to increase that to your client, you have the potential to charge more for that. Okay, so we've talked about the quality price matrix and around price positioning, cost plus. An important thing to understand when you're looking at pricing is what are the costs you incur in your business? Because simply put, to that first example, if you don't price high enough to cover your cost, you will lose money. And that is a basic thing to say. So it's important to understand when you're doing a cost plus approach that you capture all your costs. The risk is that you don't, and you end up losing money. So simply put, if you're selling a product or a service and you capture that, you have put a markup on that cost to get to a price. It can be 20%, 100% markup, and that markup can be determined to do that. The key thing would be as well is to know when you're doing cost plus pricing is to try and keep consistency. So if you're doing 100% markup this year, don't change it to 50% and then 200, because your clients are looking at the consistency of your pricing. And what I've found with some clients is they don't have a method, their prices bounce around, and then the clients are not sure on that quality price matrix where they sit, because they're saying, are you premium? Are you low? What are you? So keeping your method consistent helps your market understand where you're pitched. The second point on there is charge per hour, and it's really relevant to lots of us on the call today. I was coaching a client and talked about the fact that when you're looking charge per hour, it's important to understand how many hours per week of your time are chargeable. Because this client I coached, they said, well, I work 38 hours, I do 10 hours of admin and that. They only had 25 hours of chargeable time. So the conversation becomes, if you're trying, and you think about this, if I wanted to have a business that turns over $500,000 a year and it's just me, then I need to think about what is my charge rate and my chargeable hours per week, per month, per year. So in doing so, and factor in all your costs. So, and some of the clients that really, they thought they were charging enough, but they weren't, because they didn't factor in the non-chargeable time. So think about in your business, in your week, what is your non-chargeable time? And then that has to be recouped by charging a rate within the hours that you can charge your clients for. In terms of, we touched on this before, on competition-based pricing strategies, you want to keep competitive, but you don't want to eat into profits. At the end of the day, around doing so, it's okay to meet the market. It isn't a bad approach. But in doing so, understand, well, are you doing so at the expense of your bottom line? And does that make sense for you? So don't just feel you have to meet the market. Think about what makes sense for you, but clearly understanding the market price is important, because if you're going to be above or below or at, it's doing so consciously to understand why, because then you know if your people don't go with you and they go to a competitor, they're clearly price conscious. The next thing, which is really important to touch on this, is value. And I really focus on this a lot with the clients that I coach. Value-based pricing inherently is one of the best ways to price, because the value of what you do is built into the price. And it's how do you translate that to your customers and clients. And you can test that through the market. So really saying, you might deliver a fantastic service and it's a higher price to do that, because the value the customers get exceeds what they would get somewhere else. And if you haven't written that down or worked on that, to understand that, what value does your clients receive from you? What do they keep coming back from you? And then what do they engage you and never ask around price? They're the things that underpin businesses that have a value-based pricing approach and that continue to perform well, retain customers, because they really have a laser focus on the things that make them strong on value. If you get into a point too that, and also too that the price does reflect this, you can get to a point where you have a premium pricing approach. Ultimately, long term, you're not potentially at risk of getting a lower volume of business, because the market will say it'll sit at a mid-tier. But if you're Ferrari, for example, premium is where you need to be. You've got a high-end product or service. So for a particular service you're selling, premium might be just right. But understanding that is important. In terms of some other pricing strategies just to touch on, penetration pricing. So set something really low to get market share. Look, it's not, I'd say, advisable, but you can do it. If you want to sell a hot cake product, hey, come into Christmas, buy thousands of them, that's great. But then you'll have to some stage reset the price. The next thing to touch on is price skimming, is where you set a really high price and say, this must be a fantastic product. And then you reset price once you sell some products ongoing. So not used highly, but it's an approach you can use. The third one's important to touch on, loss leader. Some clients I coach have specific products and services that they lose money on, but they sell because it complements their other products and services. So it doesn't mean you have to have them, but it may mean that in the range of what you provide as a service or product, having a loss leader it's important for the customer. You're okay to have a lower margin, but you choose to do that. Just want to touch on today briefly that we live in a framework with the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission framework, that there are rules around pricing. So that's important to understand in business, that you don't want to be found to have been misled your consumer. And if you are truthful, you'll be in breach of the law. Few things is that it's important if comparative pricing, if you were to happen to have multiple prices for the same product, it could be perceived to be that you are misleading your customers. So today I'm selling an apple and it's $5 and tomorrow it's 10 and next day it's 7. That you can't do that. In terms of RRP, recommended retail price, it's just a price which is recommended to a retailer. It's a guide. And the last point is, if in bigger businesses, a business with high market share can apply predatory pricing to really try and wipe you out. They're going to price so low that they're going to get your clients from you. And that can be reported to the ACCC as well. There is also too price fixing, which is not legal. So Darren, if you got together with a competitor, hey, we're going to price fix at that price, you can't do that. If that's found that that's in breach of the law. I guess also to parallel pricing. If you want to follow the practice, and if that's your approach to do that, ultimately the ACCC want competition. They want range of service offering. If they found in a certain industry there was a collection of businesses that price the same price, then you're not providing a range of options for that for consumers. And then the last point is in terms of different pricing, and normally it's error. If you advertise a service at a certain price and you advertise at a different price elsewhere, so that can be found. So, it's been issued with the ACCC because you need to have consistency of your pricing. And then also just last couple of things to touch on before we close in a couple of minutes and ask a question, that if your pricing, you see this in supermarkets, businesses have to have unit code pricing. So you see the price of milk, the price of sugar, things are in unit. It allows customers to convert that. So if I buy a container of Milo, I know the smaller one costs me more per 100 grams. So having that is important. So when you're looking at pricing, it's important. And you must credit card surcharging. You must clearly label any credit card surcharges that you apply to your products or services. And you can only charge what it costs to accept those payment services. We're now sort of at the end. I just want to touch on two briefly before questions. This webinar today is part of a broader program that I do. It's a TMBA Business Finance Coaching Program. If you'd like to find out more, please come and let me know. And I do this to work with business owners to give them and upskill them on all areas of business finance, including pricing. So we've come to the end. So thank you very much for coming on this morning. I'll stop sharing. I'm happy to take anyone's questions now if they have them. So.